your girl Aisha, aka Geek XX Chic, and I'm back with the final review of the season for The Flash, episode 23, which was called We Are the Flash. And yeah, that's it. Season 4 is a wrap. It's been a fun journey overall. If I'm to give this season a score, I'll give it a B. Okay, I'll be nice. I'll give it an A-. I say it's an A-. Honestly, there was a lot more about this season that I liked than disliked, to be perfectly honest. I would give it an A+, but for a few little nitpicks, which I guess I'll just go into the nitpicks because honestly, they're the fewer part of it. I'd say the nitpicks I had this season, honestly, was just some of the pacing. There was definitely a handful of episodes that were filler. I could feel that they really were just drawing out this plot longer and trying to, I guess, make sure that it got brought up to the finale, which kind of ended making this finale feel a little bit like things were resolved a little too quickly and a little too easily, especially considering that we took essentially 9 months to build up to this point. So that was kind of the biggest detractor, I think, from this season, was honestly that I feel like they could have used those filler episodes in better ways. Like, I understand them not wanting to rush through the plot, but I've mentioned this over the last few reviews. Like, honestly, they could have used it for more side story building with Cisco, development with him, development with Caitlin, development with Iris outside of Team Flash and outside of Barry. There just was a lot of opportunities that they could have used to even show, or leveling up, just having the team level up in all their skills. Like, DaVoe was a villain that should have pushed Team Flash, all of them, to have discovered and pushed further in their abilities at the very least, and we didn't really even see that outside of them doing the whole thing where they shared the Speed Force in the last episode. So again, that was just something I feel like was a really, really great opportunity that was missed, and it just kind of unfortunately kind of took a little bit away from what could have been like a absolutely stellar season. But that's pretty much the main issues that I had, to be perfectly honest. I think everything else was really well done. I think the writing overall was really good this season, and obviously the performances, they've got a golden cast on this show, and it was really nice to see them utilize all of them. And you know, it was even nice to see, you know, Wally come back for this episode. I mean, I talk about utilizing cast members. I am still disappointed. That's another minus point for this season, was the fact that we lost Wally, because they really just didn't know what to do with him. But, you know, it is what it is. If he's being utilized better on Legends, then I'm very happy for that actor, because he deserves to be showcased and developed as a character as much as possible in this world, while he's still got all these contracts going on with the C-dubs, you know what I'm saying? So with that out of the way, let's get on to this episode and kind of the points that I kind of noticed and some of the questions that were brought up by what we saw. I was wondering, you know, with everything that happened, I know that we didn't see anything, like, because obviously the satellite, one of them fell to the earth. But anyways, this whole thing is supposed to be a global phenomenon. So I was wondering, like, I know that obviously these shows are always very self-contained outside of the crossovers, but it does make me wonder if anything DeVoe did is somehow affecting the rest of the Arrowverse. I think it'd be very interesting to see what kind of effect that could have in, like, you know, on Arrow, for example, or if there was anything that Legends could have gotten involved in. I feel like this plot was big enough and DeVoe's a big enough villain that they totally could have involved the rest of the shows in some way, shape, or form. But I mean, if it actually is over, then fine. But I just still feel like it's weird. Like, you know, I thought the first thing I thought about with when the you know, the whole thing happened with them wrapping it all up, was these satellites are still sitting in space. These satellites are still sitting in space. There's still a little miniature version of Fallout sitting there generating nuclear energy, you know, in a miniature size inside of Gideon. Like, there's a few things that are still kind of a little bit problematic with this situation. Like, I feel like they could have brought in, like, Supergirl potentially to go and make sure those satellites are safely disposed of, for example, so they can't maybe be used again, right? Biggest folly that could happen out of all of this is that someone finds DeVoe's satellites, figures out what he was doing, and decides to do the exact same thing or worse, right? But I don't know. Just a little question that came up in my head, that like maybe this was big enough to potentially affect the Arrowverse, but I don't think that's the case. I guess they just kind of save all of that for the crossovers only, but I feel like the CW kind of loses out on some really cool opportunities with having all these shows on the same network of really weaving these stories together in a really cool way. Kind of the way that Marvel, you know, integrates their MCU with S.H.I.E.L.D. and even to a lesser extent their Netflix shows, right? It doesn't have to be direct or really heavy-handed, so to speak, but just having that little interconnectivity could really make for some really rich story writing, and I feel like DaVoe was a big enough villain on The Flash to have totally done that. Very interesting. It was a very brief point, but I'm sure the show made it for a reason, about how when the dark matter wave hit, Cecile went immediately into labor. We already know this baby, for some reason, is emanating dark matter. That's what gave Cecile her telepathic powers. It makes me wonder who Jenna Marie West is gonna turn out to be. And why, like, the dark matter obviously must have affected her in some way, because, like I said, triggered labor. As soon as that dark matter started coming, baby was like, time to go. Gotta get out of here. Now, again, maybe there isn't an actual correlation. Maybe it's just a matter of, you know, the episode just wanting to have that idea of so much going on with the labor and DaVoe and all that other stuff. But I feel like the show purposefully made sure that they said as soon as the purple haze showed up, Cecile went into labor. It makes me wonder, this child seems to be very dark matter sensitive, and it makes me wonder who she could potentially be in the future, and maybe that's something that Nora will tell us in the future. Maybe, we'll see, next season. But if you guys have any theories about who she could be, please go ahead and leave those below. I'd be very interested to hear your theories. Just talking about DaVoe's plan overall, when we saw, like I said this in the last episode, like, you know, everything, the way that the writers made all the pieces that seem so random and so, like, hard to put together in the first, like, 4 or 5 episodes of the season, the way they all came together in the last 2 episodes, I'm just like, just kudos to you guys. It was such great puzzle building. Very hard to figure out the full picture until they were ready for us to see it. And even this last piece, because I kept saying that, right? I think about maybe for a while ago, I mentioned what's up with Barry? Why does he keep engaging Barry? There's got to be a reason he wants Barry. And I thought at first it had to be his body, but when he took Ralph's, I was like, okay, so it's not for Barry's healing ability. So what else could he possibly need him for? And now we know the fact that he even planned for them to use. So I personally thought that he didn't know about Cecile's, like, because I feel like he couldn't have predicted that Cecile was going to develop telepathic powers, but I guess once he found out that she had them, he must have done his recalculations. But the fact that he accounted for Cecile being the one to push Barry into his consciousness, so he had the abilities of Barry without necessarily taking Barry's body, was freaking brilliant. There's no other word. Like, it was amazing. Like, I can't say enough. The Flash writers this season nailed it. Whoever worked on DaVoe's storyline needs to be given a promotion. They need to be given out coffees daily. They need their own office. They need to have a chauffeur to work every day. They deserve to have all their favorite breakfast pastries ready for them when they show up to the writing room for season 5, because they know what they're doing. And let's just spread them out and have them work on each of the character writers as well, because nailed it. DaVoe's plot, DaVoe's development, DaVoe's motivation, all of it. All nailed, all well done, so good. So yeah, but it was just a really good plan, and I loved it. I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, like when it all comes together, when you have that, oh, that's so good. Like, it's evil, but it's good. That's what I want to see. I like smart villains. Smart villains are very hard to hate, because while you hate their intention, you can't hate on the fact that they're kind of brilliant. Right, imagine if he had something where he was gonna make the whole world smarter, for example. Like, he thought re-educating people as dummies was the answer. Maybe making everyone smart enough to realize that a lot of the petty stuff we worry about isn't important. Maybe that would help. But digressing, really well done. So I just wanna say my final kudos to that. I think it was really well done. DaVoe was beautifully done. That actor did a great job with that character. Like I said, love to hate him. Love to hate him. Kinda don't want him to be gone forever, and I'm not sure that he is. Right? That kind of goes into the next point that I have about now, yes, Ralph has his body back. He's the only one whose consciousness is still there, because I think DaVoe needed it in order to make Ralph's body work. But now that DaVoe's gone, does that mean all of the consciousnesses are, right? Because all of that was absorbed, and I don't even know how the consciousnesses move or how they do whatever they do. But now that it's gone, like, I'm just wondering where it went, I guess is my question. Where did it go? Where'd it go? Is it still in Ralph? Can Ralph be triggered? Did DaVoe put in a countermeasure? Because like he said at the end when he had the hologram of the chair show up and he said to Marlies, oh, I anticipated this moment would come even right now, where obviously he must have figured that Marlies was going to disable the chair, which obviously disabled the satellite. Did he also account for the fact in that case that by some miracle, or not miracle, but by somehow Ralph would get his body back? So maybe he made a failsafe to ensure that his consciousness was never fully gone. Like, I feel like DaVoe is way too smart not to have come up with a backup plan to ensure that he didn't disappear. So I feel like DaVoe is there somewhere. If he's not still in Ralph somehow, that just sounds so dirty no matter how I say it, then he's gotta be somewhere, like, I don't know, kind of like how like Voldemort was like in a bunch of Horcruxes in a bunch of different bodies. I feel like somehow DaVoe has put himself or his consciousness with all the abilities, or at least just his consciousness, if nothing else, into something else. Like the thinker can't just be gone. I just don't believe, he's just too big of a villain. And we have the only villains that we've lost on the Flash, like permanently, I think so far is Zoom. And he's not even really gone. He's still a wraith inside of the Speed Force. So no one's ever really gone as far as Flash villains. So I can't believe that the Thinker's gone either. He's just been too well done for the show to toss him aside like this. So whether or not we're gonna see him next season or not is still a question. I'm actually okay with taking a breather from him for next season because whew, that was a lot. But he set the bar up here. Like, the bar for villains on the Flash now is through the roof. I don't even know if they're gonna beat this next season, but they gotta come at least close to it, because you can't come back with a villain like Zoom after this. You need to bring a really good villain for season 5. So yeah, I'm wondering where DaVoe is. If you have any theories about that, please leave it below. Where could it go? Where could he put it? Is it still inside of Ralph? Is there something that might trigger Ralph one day and he's gonna become DaVoe all over again? Was DaVoe a little too easy to defeat? That's my biggest question of the episode. I mean, he said he accounted for Barry doing what he did, like using Cecile to get into his mind. So you think that, well, maybe. Part of me is like, there's no way. Like, he would have prepared and made sure there was no way that Barry would be able to attack his consciousness. Like, obviously he did the failsafe of killing the good part of himself so that Marlies couldn't come to him, like couldn't affect him anymore. It's like, why the Nexus, maybe he couldn't guard the Nexus. I guess the only thing I can think of is, I guess that's the one thing Clifford couldn't protect. No matter what, there was a nexus of his brain, because it is what it is. He can't escape his physiology. So I guess that's the only way I can think of that justifies how that happened, is that he just couldn't, I guess he thought he would outsmart. I guess so. That's what it comes down to. That's right. That's true. Okay. No, I take it back. Maybe it wasn't necessarily easy, but as Marlies brought out at the end, and I said that, I think I've been saying that for the last few episodes, that emotion is the one thing that Clifford could not calculate and he could not get. And I think as soon as he ripped the heart out of his former self, that part of him died and went away, and he honestly just has no comprehension of how connection and human emotion works anymore. And like they said, Barry and Ralph's connection was stronger than Clifford's, intellect. And while the sentiment I completely agree with, and I talked about that in length in my last few reviews about how the power of connection between two people is way stronger than any intelligence. But to put that on Ralph and Barry was, I still don't feel it. I'm sorry. For Ralph fans out there, if you exist, I just don't buy that Barry's got such a deep connection with this guy he's known for all of 6 months. Really. I mean, yes, they worked together in the past, but they really only spent real time together in this last season. So really, after that time, Barry's like, oh no, our connection's so strong. Like, that's another minus, I guess, for the season, is that I felt like the Ralph pimping and how they've tried to shove him into Team Flash, that did not go nearly as smoothly as I think they had hoped it would. I feel like they should have gone a lot slower at that. They could have. And they didn't need to have him be like Mr. Everybody loves him and let's mourn him level so quickly. Not that I'm saying they shouldn't have mourned him, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like they put way too much emotional weight on Ralph too soon, and it just feels weird. Like, if that had been Cisco, totally believable. Caitlin, totally believable. But Ralph, yeah, of course, Barry, the hero in him, is gonna fight, but it just felt unnatural. And I feel like they could have just done that a little bit differently, but it's not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, I guess with that idea, that's really what defeated DaVoe in the end. Emotions, heart, heart wins, you know, heart versus mind, heart wins. So I guess it wasn't too easy, but it felt that way. After a whole season of all this buildup, I felt like I expected the takedown to be a little bit more epic. Again, I'm not 100% sure that this is the end of DaVoe yet. So maybe they haven't taken him down. Maybe they've taken down one aspect. But like I said, someone this smart, I just don't believe that there weren't other plans. And with Dawn's entrance at the end of the show, I have to believe that there was a contingency that she didn't account for that DaVoe put into place. And by stopping the Flash from dying in that moment, potentially dying, we don't know for sure that it would have killed him, but I think she realizes now in the future it caused some kind of a ripple effect that she obviously couldn't have anticipated, as every Alan apparently has to learn the hard way. Gosh, will this family just learn not to mess with time? Let's just talk about that moment for a minute. That was really cool. I did not expect to see that rewind moment in the episode. Like, I totally, first thing I thought was Thanos is here. But yeah, it was wow, that was so cool. It was so cool and so unexpected. I did not think for a second that that's how that speedster was going to come into play in this particular part, but I was like, she has to be here for a reason. There has to be something she's going to try to stop with DaVoe. And when I saw that she really hasn't done anything to actively get at DaVoe, and she seems to be an element that he has not calculated for. I guess he couldn't possibly because she's from the future. So I was like, well, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Now we get it. We still don't get, though, why she's avoiding Iris. It still didn't explain in the end, even though she had Iris's jacket, why she keeps actively avoiding Iris. That's still a point that I need answers to, and we'll have to wait till next season to find out. But yeah, that was really cool. The way that was done, it was brief, but I loved that whole sequence. I think that was great. But yeah, we'll learn more about it. Obviously, that's why she came back, but obviously we already know that by altering the timeline by seemingly one little thing, the ripple effects can be massive. So I'm really looking forward to finding out what consequences that Dawn caused by saving her father. I have a theory, actually. While we're talking about, I know it's not really part of the episode, but one of the theory is that Dawn came back, and maybe the reason she and Iris are not like totally cool, or she wasn't rushing to see Iris. What if in her timeline Barry dies in that, like, he goes to try to stop the meteor, dies, and Iris is clearly already pregnant. She's gotta be pregnant already. Then Iris gets really bitter, very sad about what happens because she loses her husband, has to raise these kids by herself. What if, like, she kind of became this very angry and bitter person because she lost Barry and everything that happened, and then because Dawn had to grow up with her mom being sad and bitter and all these things all the time, maybe they didn't have a good relationship, and so in her mind she says, you know what, maybe things will be different, and my mom will be different, and everything will be different if I save my dad. Like, what if he doesn't die that day, and you know, we get to be a happy family? What'll happen, right? Because that would be so like her, because it's so like her father, right? That's exactly what Barry did. If my mom didn't die, maybe my life would be so different. Obsessed about it till he actually did it and messed everything up. That would be such an Alan thing to do. I feel like maybe it's something like that. That's my theory. It's just a theory. I know nothing, but what do you guys think of that? I feel like that might be a story that holds water, and it might explain why she's so weird about Iris. But anyway, enough of that. That was just my little predictions potentially for next season. Finally, on to Harry. That he was kind of the other part of this episode. The fact that he started acting like Barry when he first came out of the Speed Force and speaking in the writing in the Speed Force language, we haven't addressed that, because we also see that Dawn knows how to write that language as well, and DaVoe's Cap use the same thing. So I need to know the significance of that language. You really need to know where that language came from and why everyone keeps writing in it. That was not addressed at all this season. Okay, so all right, something just occurred to me as I'm sitting here. So as of the babbling, remember Cisco made sure, again, I don't think these writers drop any line out there for no reason. Cisco said the things that Harry's saying are the exact same things that Barry was saying. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I'm not making sense because my brain is going at the same time. Sorry. I was like, maybe Barry did get the Enlightenment in the future, but I keep forgetting that Barry just had obviously seen this future happen. He saw Harry. He was imitating what Harry was doing and how Harry was acting when he came out of when he'd been rebooted mentally. Okay, that makes more sense, because I was thinking maybe that happened but maybe DaVoe miscalculated what the Enlightenment would do. maybe DaVoe assumed that it would cause people to become dumb, but really it just like had the reverse effect and made them like crazy brilliant, and like they just needed time to like assess all that information. Right? Because think about it, like maybe that's what happened. Like maybe like Barry's like, because obviously Barry's mind works faster than everybody else's, but maybe Harry was already coming to that place where he's starting to sort through all this extra knowledge that he had. Like maybe it actually worked. I don't know. I think there's more to the language stuff. I think there might be more to that. There's gotta be. I hope they discuss. I hope we get into it in season 5. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting that they made sure to show Harry writing in that language and saying the same words. We also got that this house is bitchin'. We finally know what that one's about. And then you're not supposed to be here, Nora. That wasn't said yet, but I'm assuming that must be in season 5. But yeah, we've covered a lot of what Barry talked about outside of the Speed Force, but not all of it. So I feel like the other half of that's gonna, or at least a good chunk of it's gonna be in season 5. And I don't feel like DaVoe's gone yet. I do think we're gonna come back to him. But back to Harry, at the end when he put on the cap and, you know, he's like, okay, well, my language is back and stuff, but he said he doesn't have the intelligence anymore. I question if that's true. I think Harry's been on a journey this season because, yes, he came into Team Flash at the beginning of the season very ornery, very disconnected, and very emotionally unavailable, and now he's a big old hug bear, right? So, I feel like Harry might be, I think he is okay. I actually think his intelligence is back. I think that maybe if he isn't feeling it, it might be an actual emotional block right now because of what he went through. It also could be something that might gradually come back to him because obviously he didn't get dumb in a second when thinking cap shorted. It took him like a few days to devolve into what he was. So it may very well just be a reversal process where his intellect will come back, as his brain heals itself. I'm also wondering if it is just an emotional block on Harry's part. Like maybe he's like, that guy, that version of me was so dependent on my intelligence that I basically wanted to die when I lost it, and I don't want to be that guy ever again. I've had time to really examine my emotional side, and maybe I don't hate it as much as I thought I did, right? So I don't know. It's just a little side thing. I don't really think his intelligence is gone. I think maybe he's just going to enjoy not having to rely on it and rediscovering who he is without it for a while. And then I wouldn't be surprised if by next season he's like, yeah, no, I'm still smart. Yeah, and I guess with the West Allen stuff, I just gotta talk about that, There wasn't a whole lot outside of course, the We Are the Flash has been said continuously throughout this season. I love it, but I know there are people out there who get cringed about it. Too bad. But it was brought through, obviously, it wasn't just talking about Barry and Iris here, very much talking about how the Flash is a family. I think that's been really highlighted really well throughout the entire season, that Team Flash works because they care so much about each other. That love and that bond is really what make them the strongest. And I think Barry mentioned that to DaVoe very early in the season. But coming down to the core of it being, Barry and Iris, I love that little moment when Barry was in DaVoe's mind and he was like, when Ralph was like, think of something that you really love, like something that's really gonna connect you. And he was like, it's you and me, Iris. Like that was just so sweet. I'm like, my babies. I love that their connection is so amazing. Also, that conversation at the end, very interesting. I do think it's a red herring, personally. I know a lot of folks out there, I know the haters are gonna be like, see, Barry doesn't want to have kids with her. Yeah, he does. Okay, we all know that Barry is very busy trying to make babies with Iris. Okay, let's not even joke. All right, he even bragged about it last season. But point being, I thought it was a cute little moment where she's like, we're gonna be next, we're gonna have baby. I mean, you know how these writers go. Like they drop an anvil and then they try to give you the red herring, right? She was like, oh, we're next. And then Barry's, I don't know of a guy out there that unless you're actively trying for kids, most men have that sheer panic response at the idea of parenthood whenever you bring it up. Like, what? What did you say? When we saw Joe went catatonic and when he first found out that Cecile was pregnant. So, yeah, I'm obviously no stock into that. I think Barry's just, with everything that's gone down this season and all that he's dealing with a pregnancy on top of that is probably just a little more than he could take in that moment. But obviously we know that if Iris is pregnant, which I totally believe that she is, and she just doesn't know yet, I think that Barry's gonna be over the moon about it. Of course he is. Of course he's gonna be happy about being a father. But obviously 2 pregnancies in 1 season is a bit much to deal with, so I'm okay with them not having anything about that show up now. So that was basically the big highlights of the episode. Like I said, overall, I did enjoy this season a lot. It was a lot of fun to watch. I really like these new writers. I have high expectations. I feel like the writers fixed, like I said, a lot of the things that were wrong in the previous seasons as far as, you know, where characters should be, focuses of certain characters. Like I said, with Iris getting back to her roots, getting Iris where she is, being the leading lady of this show. Also just kind of developing more of, Caitlyn's storyline outside of, her being in a relationship. And now we need more of Cisco. That's probably the biggest gap that wasn't really filled, in my opinion, in this season, is more of Cisco's storytelling. But really like these writers. I feel like they've set a really great foundation to kind of, getting the show back up to like a good place where it was kind of starting in season 1. I mean, even what they said in there, like when they had DaVoe come in on his chair and be like, you don't get to defeat the big bad this season. I'm like, that is straight off the internet. Like, these writers actually read, like, that they're reading the blogs, they're reading the articles, they're on the message boards, like they're really aware of what fans have been saying, and I've seen it in a lot of what they fixed and dealt with this season. So it makes me hopeful in season 5 they'll be able to tackle even more of those issues and hopefully get this show being its best. I mean, you can't make a perfect show in the sense of everyone loving it, that's just the reality, but I think they're really close to getting it to a place where it's going to be a really, like, just keep maintaining that top spot as far as the DCW shows on this network. So kudos to them. Great fun this season. Really liked doing it. So I really hope you guys liked watching this season along with me. Thank you so much for all your comments and all your interaction. I've loved it. I'm really sorry that I had to take that break right in the middle of everything, but thanks so much for just hanging in there with me and supporting me. And like I said, I read those comments and you guys are so much fun and so helpful with information that I don't know and helping me get up to speed with all things DC. So thanks so much for that. What did you guys think of this episode and what did you think of this season? Overall, give it a grade below. Let me know what you're thinking. And if you give it a really low mark, give a couple of reasons. Try to be objective, but give your reasons for why you feel like the season wasn't great if that's the way you felt about it. Give me all of your theories for next season. What do you think the repercussions of what Dawn did are going to have on the future? And what do you think why do you think she has that issue with Iris? Like, does anyone have any theories as to why she would be that way towards her mother? She's so warm and fuzzy with Barry. Why is she different with Iris? So please, any theories, guesses, predictions, put those below. Let's have some fun with this. We've got a lot of time to kill before the next season. If you like this video, guys, please click like. And if you want to see more from this geeky face, please click subscribe. And as usual, if you want to watch this video, the reaction, you can catch that on my Patreon page. It is a free public video, meaning you do not subscribe. You just have to go there and you can watch that reaction at your leisure. So thanks so much for watching, guys. See ya.